I'm a person just like all of you. And just like all of you, I'm entitled to my opinion regarding one of the largest matters that's going on in the country today. No, it's not the upcoming presidential election, but we may get to that later on, so keep tuned in to this channel and definitely subscribe. But we're here to talk about what many people would call the gay issue, the gay problem, the LGBT community fighting and advocating for more rights, and it's starting to become a mainstream topic, especially after what happened with Chick-fil-A. I'm not here to discuss Chick-fil-A. That's old news. That happened pretty much last week, so forget about it. What I am here to talk about is the idea that segregation isn't dead, and also the fact that, in reality, one of the principal people and groups that are aligned with this discrimination, well, they need to kind of take a cue from their own teachings. Yeah, I'm actually going into that discussion. We're going into the talk about the Christian faith really defaming the LGBT community, not all, but most, those extremists, and really Chick-fil-A getting involved slowly by saying that these people are not true Americans. I want to take you guys on a history lesson. I want to take you guys back to 1776, whenever the Constitution of the United States of America was ratified. I want to take you to one particular line that the Constitution has within it. And that is the line that all men are created equal. However, ever since this country's inception, all men were not created equal. The blacks were not created equal in the eyes of the white in America. They were slaves, and that's something that, while it was taken care of during the Civil War by Abraham Lincoln through the Emancipation Proclamation, true freedom, true separation, and true equality didn't truly start to exist until the latter part of the 1960s, early part of the 1970s. And even to this day, many people still claim that a glass ceiling exists, not only for blacks, but also for females. Which means that if you're a black female, you have a double glass ceiling to potentially work at. Now, while that's something that has been slightly taken care of, and actually there have been leaps and bounds that have been done in order to create a more equal environment, it is still something that plagued the first 200 years of America's history. Already for 200 years, all Americans were not created equal. It's funny, too, considering the immigrants that came in during the melting pot days were sometimes, in most cases, treated just as equally as bona fide Americans, but yet the blacks were not. Now, there are incidents in history, such as the gulags and, the camps that took place over in California during the middle part of the 20th century that kind of also count, but we're going to get to the second one now, and that's the current one, the LGBT community. I'm going to skip over terrorism and Muslims because that's something that was after one of the most despicable acts in human and American history. And that, of course, was the events of 9/11. But that's all come to pass mainly because now there's a new target group. Now there's a target group that the Christians can get behind, and that is the LGBT community. These are people just like you. I'm going to throw that out there. These are people that have religion. These are people that don't have religion. These are people that have faith. These are people that breathe and live. However, you choose to defame them and you choose to claim them as heretics, as bad people, simply because of their quote-unquote lifestyle choice. I hate that term, by the way. With a lot of these people, it's not truly a choice. It's something that has just been a part of them ever since they were born, or it was something that they had to explore and really go through a large struggle just to come to terms with. It's not exactly the same way as being born into a Christian household and just being force-fed it and forced to understand and follow it. The LGBT community breathe just like you do. The LGBT community also have rights just like you do. So here's my proposition. My proposition is this. I think that once this LGBT community discrimination thing, sorts itself out, whenever gay marriage comes, and it is coming. This is no longer an if statement. This is a when statement. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I think the next group that should be discriminated against should be the Christians. I really think so. And no, I'm not saying Christians to the lions. This is not ancient Rome, and let's face it, if a lion mauled a person today, it'd be pretty horrific. It'd be covered all over the news, and it would be touted as one of the worst acts of humankind. When in reality, I know, I've heard the arguments. Crucifixions were rampant. There were many styles of execution that were enticingly morbid from the days of Christ. We're not going to get into that argument. Instead, it would be a verbal shellacking. Instead, it would be intolerance. You might say that intolerance already exists, and for the most part, you might be right. But here's a little history lesson for you, too. Many black people were lynched. The KKK, of course, existed, and very little was done about it. There have been multiple members of the LGBT community that have been beaten and even killed for their lifestyle choice, as you call it, and very little was done about that. However, if somebody were to take a bomb into a church, lay it under a pew, and have it explode, killing all the parishioners inside, or even just killing one man, that would be considered an act of terrorism. With my hopes, the Westboro Baptist Church would protest the funeral, saying that God is pissed. Because, well, for the first time in their lauded career, they'd be absolutely correct. But I'm pissed off. I'm extremely pissed off about this. Because one of the cornerstone philosophies, not of the Constitution, but of the Bible, is this. Treat others the way that you want to be treated. Keep that in mind if intolerance against your religion ever comes. Because many of you are bringing all of that onto yourselves. If you really want a way to go, you can still hate the sin, but you can love the sinner. You may claim that you're doing that. You may claim that it's actually homosexuality that you find abhorrent, but not the people. However, you are not showing it. Speaking words and showing it are night and day. Speaking words and not showing it is called hypocrisy. A lot of you are guilty of hypocrisy. And for those of you who are simply comfortable in believing what your Godhead supposedly subscribes as the correct way to live, without formulating an opinion of your own, without gauging your feelings left or right, if you're simply following a Godhead, if you're simply following your family, if you're simply following what someone behind a pulpit is saying, then your opinion is quite honestly irrelevant. Because you don't have an opinion. Because you are just like a Christian. You are a sheep. Sheep have absolutely no individuality. And to be perfectly honest, in my opinion, like a sheep, you have no rights and could just as easily be a lamb to the slaughter.